Welcome to Tami's Soul Speak, featuring animal intuitive and medium Tami Hendricks, offering insight, spirituality, transformation, and clarity to every soul. Now, here's Tami.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I hope wherever you are in the world, if it's a good morning or good afternoon, good evening, that you are enjoying your day. And I hope the weather has been nice wherever you are. We've had a really nice stretch here of warm in the 70s days, and it's just so lovely. All the bears are out. They're really taking down the acorns and the hickory nuts, and it's just fun to watch them. They just graze in the neighborhood yards all afternoon. So I'm excited that you're here, and it's, the topic today is an interesting one. I don't know if you've ever thought about the in-between stage with animals, but it's a fascinating topic, actually. And I guess I've learned a lot from the animals in that respect. And at the same time, we all have in-between spaces and stages of things. And so I'm hoping today that as we discuss and come into the proverbial space of talking, that you're going to be able to start looking at your own life and, oh, I wonder if I'm in an in-between space right now. So, it definitely is something that I think we can all benefit from. And I see as you're coming in, hi, Jen, it's good to see you in Canada. And is it beautiful there? I would be thinking it is. And so, make sure if you're just coming in that you have your little notebook, your pen, because this is going to be super interactive today, super fun and exploratory and thoughtful. So, what I would say the in-between stage is the preparation before a pet passes. It signals change. And we all go through them. We go through them after it's a transition. And so you might term an in-between space, like you leave a job and before you start another one, in-between space. And that happens before a passing. It happens actually after. And that's, that would be more like the afterlife review, which we'll definitely touch on maybe next show. But the preparatory stage is often one you don't even realize is happening. So hopefully today we'll be able to drill down into that. Hi, Susie. It's good to see you. And Jen says it's wet. Happy Wednesday, Nancy, and Ontario. I'm glad you're coming in and joining us. So like I was saying, often, there are obvious signs that are easy to spot with our animals and in our own lives. Perhaps our pet is ill or older and they're slowing down. And so we start wondering about it. Hi, Constance, it's good to see you. And Karen, hand pink waving. Okay, that's actually probably supposed to be an emoji, but that's really cute. It's good to see you. So, if you have any animals that are slowing down, we can take a look at what they may be communicating with us. It's sometimes we're consciously aware of it, sometimes not. If it's sudden and we reflect on the few weeks before, we can often catch a glimpse of the subtly connected pieces. And when you're meant to see something, you will. Always remember that things don't become visible until they're ready. And as energy is in a field, and like if it's a wave and you're looking out at a big wave in the ocean and you can't really tell the definition of it, but as it comes closer, you can see its shape and how big it is. You can see more details with it. And that's the same thing with this, all the things we talk about. The in-between space gets clearer as we get more tuned in to how, the subtle pieces and how spirit communicates. And Lauren says, hello from Colorado. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So the other thing is all you need is an open mind and an open heart. The heart, if you have an open heart, it usually opens the mind. The mind's a little resistant on that sometimes. So, it can be this in-between space before the animal passes, a really quiet space. I always liken it to like a quietly busy space. A lot is going on underneath the surface, tremendous amount of movement. The soul is wrapping up its earthly life. Spirit is preparing to welcome them. So it's quite busy, tying up loose ends, as they prepare for the journey. So for people, for example, if it's on an unconscious level, they may make phone calls ahead of time of their passing. Maybe they're not ill. Maybe there's something coming down the pike that they don't know. I don't know if any of you have experienced that. I have, where my sister made a lot of phone calls. My father did too. And hers, she did it like 2 weeks before she died in a car crash. And so that would have been the in-between space that I wasn't aware of. Obviously, she wasn't necessarily aware, but her soul and spirit were urging her and to reach out and connect with people that she loved. So, the nuanced changes that happen, if we're aware and present enough, it can help us tune in. And so going back to open mind, open heart, and presence. I'll always say the animals teach us presence, and they're the best guides for that. And when we're with animals, we're, most of us anyway, immediately present with them. So the tuning in helps in our own lives as we become more aware of that poignant space that bridges life and passing. And I have a couple of graphics I wanted to share with you. So Renee, if you would put that first one up. So in this graphic, you've got a dog that's not, hasn't walked in a while. The guy hasn't walked in a while, and he's reflecting, how time has passed and they haven't been there as often. And so, the in-between space here is in preparation for changes coming. It's really to appreciate the quality of time we have right now. And it's always in the moment. And so I think both the dog and the man appreciate being out there together. They're both, as you can see from their expressions, quite happy. So Renee, if you would turn give me the next slide. So my body feels quiet. It's a cat. And the person coming in says, "Are you still napping?" How many of you, have noticed animals sleeping as they get older a lot, and especially as they approach a passing, they'll sleep, and it can be the signal that tells us that something is actually changing. Something's not necessarily that it's here today, but that it's changing a little bit. And so if we can be present enough to be aware of that, we can get a lot of information. It actually brings us closer to our animals. It's an incredibly intimate space. And so I wanted to share this photo. It's a recent photo of Lake Lure Flowering Bridge. It's in North Carolina. Renee, if you would put that slide up, you see all and I've shared the Rainbow Bridge that is in Lake Lure before, but take a look at all the collars. This has grown. I went back, I want to say I visited it in July. It's grown even more so now, as that I love the bridge imagery because it's a transition point for us. Marge says that picture always brings tears to me. Susie says, "Wow, I know, isn't it amazing?" It's very emotional. You can feel into that. You can feel all the love that people have for their animals, and you can feel the animal's presence. Charmaine says, "Wow, that's overwhelming." It is. And when I went, I could feel the energy ahead of, as I was approaching it. And it immediately touched me in my heart. And all the animals that are honored here. So again, the in-between space for people as they come to this particular spot, it may be that they are in the after phase of the passing, but they're in between moving on. They haven't quite started to move on in their lives. So it allows for an emotion to come up. It allows for their hearts to open. And even if we cry when we go there or something moves us, that is the emotions releasing themselves and allowing things to flow. So this particular spot serves as a huge heart opening portal for people. And people may cry for the animals that aren't even theirs, which is even more poignant, right? Because they're touched. Lauren says, I would love to have one in my hometown. This is a volunteer project that a person had an idea about 10 years ago. And then, I guess got together with the local officials and it was created. And then people started visiting and leaving collars and leaving notes and leaving stuffed animals. But it has grown tremendously. And so I think, wouldn't that be wonderful if there were more places like that? So, sometimes in between is long, sometimes it's short. Every transitional space contains bits and pieces of energetic information, parts of the whole, like a hologram reveals the true depth of the image. So it's profoundly informative and connects us to ourselves, our animals, and to the universe. So question for you. If you could tune into and understand the preparation stage, would you want to? Would you want to be aware of the in-between space? Some of us simply can't face it. They can't go there. But how many of you would want a heads up? And if you had that pre-knowledge, would you try to stop it from happening? Marge said she would like it. Carrie says yes. Nancy says yes. And Claire says yes every time. Lori, yes. Susie said yes to a point. Well, that's good to know that for yourself, because you can open to a point and then just be where you are. Jen says, yes, I'd be honored. Oh, Maria says, yes, I would. Lori says, no stopping it. Wow. I've often thought, Lori, I've had a couple of instances with my animals that had I known ahead of time, I'm pretty sure I would have tried to stop it. But that would have been the wrong thing to do, because I would have been interfering in their soul journey and their soul path. So, I didn't have heads up on certain instances, and I understand why I didn't. Bobby says, we are there now. Oh, well, maybe in the show, Bobby, it'll help you with what we talk about, kind of tune in. And Nancy said, I've had this experience three times over the last few years. It's a lot. And Janet said, I was aware of it with grace, but I couldn't or wouldn't accept it in my mind at the time. I love that you pointed that out, Janet. So yes, that in-between space, it's like we have a knowing and we just don't want to look at it. I've done it many, many times in my life. I look back and I was like, oh, they gave me that certain look, or, oh, I saw that and I didn't catch it. We always pick it up on some level. Again, consciously, we may not be able to go there. And Susie, that may be what you're also talking about, up to a point. So Janet, thanks for that. Lori says it's all related to the universal energy that has its own plan. Absolutely. Charmaine says that's a hard question. I worried so much already. I don't think I would. Fair enough. It's good to know that, though, right? It's good to take a look at ourselves and ask ourselves the questions. Carolyn says, I'm happy I made it here. I thought I missed. No, you are right on time. So glad you are here. So if you could know, in what ways would it be helpful, do you think? Would you live life any differently with that knowledge? Would you interact with your pet any differently? Claire says, I wonder how much anticipatory grief will prevent that feeling and knowing coming through. Well, again, thank you for pointing that out. because really to pick it up, to pick all the subtle nuances and changes that we're going to be talking about, we actually have to release our small self from, that is the one that's going to miss them, and let a higher energy come in, because when animals are in the stages of the passing or approaching it, a lot of times their bodies are just tired, and actually they communicate through their higher selves, and there's a much more expansive communication than you ever would have otherwise. Susie said, protecting myself from a painful loss. That's totally understandable. And anticipatory grief, everybody grieves differently. Everybody does. And so it's good to know how you interact with life, with yourself. Marge says, I think you hit it on the nail, Tami. We're afraid of the grief. I'm right there with you. I've been there many times where I could feel, let's say there was a door, proverbial door, and I could feel on the other side of that door, there was going to be huge change coming. So, of course, I tried to keep the door shut. Everything's fine, just not going to look at it. So, it's how we, I don't know, maybe not all the time move through life, but it's good to know where we are and understand it. Carrie says, one of my old dogs asked to go. They'll communicate very directly. And the more you're in tune with them, the more you're going to get that deeper, rich communication. Lori says, I've been trying to communicate with my pet's higher self and have not had much success yet. I don't believe that's true, Lori, or you wouldn't be here. Who do you think got you here? You absolutely are connecting with them. You just hadn't got the memo. It's like the biggest setup ever. So Renee, if you put up the slide, starting with, the benefits of why would we, let's just take a look at that. So the emotional preparation, right? And maybe that falls into the anticipatory grief Claire mentioned. Emotional adjustment phase, beginning the grieving process in a more gradual, mindful way, allowing us to get used to the idea. So it gives us that. The quality time, chance to spend quality time. Meaningful moments become chapters in our stories with them, and we'll always look back at that. Understanding needs. If we are tuned in, we can give them better care, obviously, more comfort, perhaps even make important decisions we have to. Closure. It gives us a chance to say goodbye, express gratitude for the companionship and joy they've brought into our lives, and say what needs to be said. And Renee, if you'd move to the next slide, I've got a couple more things that'd be beneficial. During this period, there's a tremendous amount of spiritual connection and understanding. The energy is vibrationally heightened as the veil between worlds thins. Often spiritual insights drop in and the spiritual connection deepens. And then, the other one I mentioned is it's a profound learning experience. It helps us understand about the cycles of life and death, the resilience of the spirit, and the power of our unconditional bond. And for all of those ones mentioned, I don't know how many of them there, 5 of them, no, 6. Which ones did you resonate with? Is there one on that list you resonated with more? Because that's something to pay attention to too. Pay attention to what we notice, right? Notice what you notice. Maria says, yes, definitely closure. Yes. And I think as we move forward in life and you've got the new one, you are still working on a little closure and then opening yourself up to new beginnings, which is the cycle. It is the cycle of life. Susie says learning experience. Isn't all of life learning experience, but boy, the animals can surely point us directly to exactly what we need to learn in each moment. Claire says, I felt Bronnie with her long illness give me the subtle signs, even with my grief. However, with the short passing of Pika, she also gave us a big sign, 2 different signs in 2 different ways. It's like we have to get up to speed really quickly sometimes with where life is headed. And emotionally, we may be a little behind in that. But, when the soul starts moving and an animal starts going toward or people either, the passing, there's an uptick in the energy, even if the body is slowing down. So it's kind of like uh, intuitively different than what you'd think. And Claire says, definitely the profound experience. Yes. Yes. So we're going to need, this is the soul speak shift I'd like to do with you. Let's take a minute to do this, because I'd love to know some of these thoughts you have. And Melissa says, before I get to that, our first four-legged kid, Newfoundland, passed very suddenly at the age of 7 years old. I'd been through the passing of a pet previously, yet this was the first of my very own as an adult. It was absolutely devastating. She literally was our first baby. That's so painful. That is so painful. We currently have another Newfoundland, and I've been terrified that she's suddenly going to go. I understand that piece. It's kind of like a anticipatory feeling that you have from the devastation and the trauma. It makes total sense. Even though in my heart, I know history will not repeat itself. She just turned 10 years old. Just be kind to yourself. And just when you have those, like, where you catch your breath, breathe out and just relax and see if you can pause in the moment to open your heart. Because that's when our nerves kind of are shot like that, we constrict. And if we can be conscious enough to, I'd say, do a heart pause, then it helps tremendously. So I'm going to do a soul speak shift with you. I'm going to ask you some questions. So Renee, if you put up that first slide. And so we just talked about the ways to be beneficial and emotional preparation, quality time, understanding needs. So I'm going to throw these questions out to you. You can try to answer them now, or you can wait and do it later. These are really introspective questions. So for emotional preparation, how do you emotionally prepare? Not just for a passing of an animal. How do you emotionally prepare when you feel like a loss is coming? Because that's very, very indicative of how you approach loss in general in yourself. Quality time. What would quality time look with your pet? What would that look like to you? We all probably have different ideas of that, and maybe some shared ideas that are the same. If you could understand your pet's needs, what would that allow you to do? If you could understand your own, how would that help you with your pet's process? I like that last question, because we're part of the journey, and we tend to put all our focus on our pets in this time, and that's perfectly fine. At the same time, it's good to understand what we also need in our hearts as we go through this journey with it. Judy says, I feel like some leave me sooner because they are preparing me for the passing, even if devastating to me. Marshall's sitting on my lap and falling asleep on my lap. And Jen says, quality time, just being present with them. What else? What else would be quality time? Presence is huge. It's the greatest gift we can give each other, our animals. So what about the next slide, Renee? Closure. What helps you with closure? How do you know when you've experienced it? Maria, you mentioned closure. How do we know when we've had closure? I'd love to hear some of you put that in words. How do you know you've experienced closure? Does your heart get settled? Do you exhale? Do you just feel peace in your heart? Leslie says, looking into their eyes. And Judy says, quality, extra treats. So for spiritual connection and understanding, how do you know when you've had a spiritual connection? What would you want to know? The knowing of which would change everything. It's good things to think about, because this in-between space is rich with potential. Learning experience. What would you hope to learn about life and death and the space in between? What would you hope to learn about yourself? Susie, you mentioned the learning experience. What would you hope to learn about yourself? Maria says, I don't have it yet. I'm still angry at the irresponsible sitters. I need to find closure. Well, we can't force that. It will come. And let yourself be angry. It's fine. Include that in. If we don't compartmentalize, then we allow for the process to happen naturally. Carrie says, I have a lot, just lost it. Janet says, whoa, okay, thank you. I have lots of conversations during the between times talking about our gratitudes for each other. That's beautiful. I love that. And it's so special. Telling them stories, how they came to you. Marge says, my spiritual connection was when I had a dream after she passed. I dreamt I'd held her in my arms. I could feel her soft ears and smell her Frito feet. What a connection. Like, that's a chapter in your life. So what if you didn't experience or you weren't aware of the in-between space while it was happening? What then? Renee, yes. So what would you do if you couldn't, or you didn't, or you missed it? How would that change you? So what I have found is, looking back, we can still gain valuable insights. You might recall dreams or feelings of unease leading up to it, but as Janet said, I was tracking without really consciously tracking. You can see where you felt like there were moments that the pet was trying to communicate or achieve something before their passing, or recall that other family pets displayed unusual behavior. The hindsight piece is very helpful. You might notice synchronicities that occurred, unexpected bird visits that happened during that time, for instance, or songs, or maybe the weather was doing something funky during that time. So a lot of you are saying, I'd feel like if I didn't know that in-between space was coming, I'd feel like I'd missed out. I'd feel like I had, let my pet down. Leslie says it would be traumatic. So I have a client that I spoke with a couple weeks ago, and her sweet little Westie passed very suddenly. She came in from a walk, and it happened very shortly, within 20 minutes after that walk. She didn't see it coming and was devastated and shocked at how fast life had changed and how quiet the house was. And when we had a session, we talked about this in-between space, and she said, well, I didn't know. And so I said, well, 2 weeks ago, what was going on in your life? And she said, well, I started having this feeling I needed to sit and connect with my higher self, connect with my guides and angels. And so I would make a point every day to sit, and I would also include my dog. And so I would surround us with this beautiful light, and I could feel the presence of higher beings. And it was so comforting. As we talked, this little pup actually passed on the lunar eclipse the night of. And then this piece where she was sitting with her guides and opening the space, she actually helped the little dog, without realizing that this would happen, helped the little dog pass on an energy that was so high because she was preparing without realizing she was. So a lot of times we can't see the in-between space, but we can always look back and track pieces of it and see where, they all connect. So Claire says, it felt like I was beating myself up for a long while. And Charmaine says, definitely hindsight. My sweet boy gave me so many signals I just couldn't or wouldn't see. Again, I go back to Charmaine. We see what we're meant to see. And we can squeeze and try to see, but you're just going to strain your eyes. So let spirit unfold and show you in exactly the right way. And I've had to learn that hard way a lot of times. And Carolyn says, I have another kitty, 9-year-old Matt, and sometimes he looks at Jazz and then at me with such compassion. I feel that when you wrote that. It's almost as if he knows Jazz's time is limited. He adores Jazz. And, the animals would say, just soak up the moments, just soak it up. So we've talked about why it would be beneficial to have a heads up on that in-between space. Let's talk about what the signs could possibly be. So Renee, if you put up the signs, and you help me out here, you may have seen more than these. Behavioral shifts, they might seek solitude, displaying changes in how they interact, social interactions, altering usual routines, sleeping more. Like I've seen many animals sleep in different locations all of a sudden, like they'll go from here to here and here. And I believe I've talked about this on another show. They are actually imprinting their energy in the space. And referring to my client with the dog that suddenly passed, she said that she had gone through and had taken all the, everything away and packed it up because it was just too upsetting for her. And the little dog said she didn't put up everything. And so I asked her, I said, did she sit in your office with you? She says, yes, she sat in right here. I said, so did you take everything up from that office? And she looked, she was like, no, her bed is right here. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be moving that. She wants her bed there. She's going to continue to help you. So this little dog went everywhere, popping on this place, this place and that. Physical signs, changes in eating and drinking habits, altered sleep patterns, decrease in mobility. I know we've probably all seen that. Lauren says, oh gosh, Onyx started to just sit outside on the hill in our backyard halfway down the last couple of days before she passed. I kept thinking it was strange. Wow. So you see, on the spirit level, there's so much more going on than we're given access to until it's time to be given access. Is your pet, Renee, if you keep that up, is your pet vocally or his body language is different? Does your pet stare directly at you? The communication changes? Has your pet given you the look? I mention that because I always tell my animals as they're approaching this stage, you're going to have to help me out here because I'm here to help, here to support. Please just give me the look that I will understand, I will know. And every single time they do, even if they give me the look and I see it, but I don't consciously catch it, as we've talked about, but they definitely have a certain in their eyes. It's the eyes are the windows to the soul. So what else do we want to look for? Renee, if you put up emotional shifts, is there an increased need for affection? Less need? Are there moments of unexpected deep connection or even distancing? Do you find your pet staring off, almost contemplative? Leslie said, yep, seems to be looking at things that aren't there. You're tuning into a whole different field, actually. And Leslie said, Bella gave me the look. Claire says, Bronnie gave us the look and we immediately knew, even without thinking. Yes, without thinking. Absolutely. It's not a thinking process. Yet Pika, it was only a knowing. My husband and I suddenly looked at each other and said, it's time, at exactly the same sec. That's beautiful. Beautifully poignant. So what about intuitive connections? This is a more subtle, sign. Do you feel like being of the intuitive bond between you and your pet? And you can't really understand why, it just is happening. Do you have that, like Claire did, a felt sense or an intuitive knowing without knowing the details? And spiritual experiences, dreams, unusual experiences, profound understandings or closure, heightened sense of spirit being present. Has anybody had dreams ahead of a passing? And sometimes, dreams are always symbolic. So it's not often, it can be difficult to interpret the meanings. but I would pay attention. I would pay definitely attention to dreams or any kind of, unusual experiences. Carrie says, I was hoping the steering in space was him seeing other energies. Actually, that's very possible. It's not, these are pointers. These are not necessarily like exact. So I don't want you to leave the show and think, oh my gosh, I know my pet is passing. I mean, his passing is coming soon. No, not at all. These are just things for you just to be aware of, but they're not exact, if that makes sense. So I'm glad you brought that up. Jeff said Daisy did that, looking at things I couldn't see and being contemplative. They're actually, I'm glad I put you to ease, Carrie. Sorry about that. Jeff, Daisy was tuning in. She says she was fine tuning. And they get very busy actually at this stage where they are looking off and they're they're checking into the other side. Yeah, Leslie said, that's what I feel. He's looking at spirits that have passed. Absolutely. They have their radar system gets even more focused, right? So it's really, we can learn a lot from them at this time. And if you see them staring, just see what they're like, look at yourself and see if you feel anything in that space. What about sudden surges of energy? Renee, if you put that next slide up. Temporary increase. That's what my Katie did. That's what my Ollie did. He got really, really great the weekend before. He and people do this too. Have any of you had that experience where, we can have a relative that's ill and all of a sudden they get better or they revert to being younger and we're like, yes. And, it's wonderful to see. And at the same time, realize that it's not necessarily permanent, but it's when you are watching them, they're just enjoying life. My little Sammy, she was a beagle. And, Lauren mentioned Onyx going to the top and looking over. Sammy would go to the top of the hill and look over the land. She was so content and she was so ill, but she would get her little self up and she would go sit. And she was actually taking in the energy of the space and saying her own goodbyes. So it can be a very poignantly beautiful thing to watch. And so to Carrie's asking about the staring, just disclaimer, not all of these mean your pet is in the in-between space or nearing death, yet they can be pointers. And so it's just good information. We're just, educating ourselves here. Let's see, Grace Lee, I don't know if I pronounced that right. It's really pretty though. My gizmo gave me the look. He'd been sleeping more, eating and drinking less. I remember praying that last day as Gizmo was laying next to me in bed, sound asleep. I asked God to give me a sign that it was Gizmo's time. About 30 minutes later, Gizmo suddenly sat up and stared deep into my eyes. He did that sometimes when he had to go potty. I asked him if he needed to go out, but he just kept staring into my eyes. He was letting me know. Wow, what a communication. That's a very deeply personal and intimate and an answer to your prayers. Thank you for sharing that. Bobby says, mine is showing all. We just don't know if he can pass on his own. It's so hard. And we have sat at his side for 2 weeks. I'm truly broken watching this. I'm being selfish holding him here. So the passing on his own, just here's what I would do. Be with him, hold him, and I'm hoping we can get to something that I think will help you, where you hold and you breathe with him, you feel his heartbeat, and you just tune in, not needing to know an answer, just being, because it's in that space that if the clarity is meant to come, it'll come in that space. And keep checking in. So in other words, if you're asking every day about, oh, is today the day? I've been there too. I understand that. I did that with Sammy for sure. And somebody said, oh, you need to take that dog in. And I just remember my intuition was saying, I just don't think it's time. I just don't think it's time. And she lasted 3 weeks more. And in that 3 weeks, I watched her go to the top of the hill. So it's a time not to stay in your head, definitely a time to be with them, not doing, being. And so all of you all are definitely responding to this. Claire said, I'm wondering how long time-wise that the signs are there. I suddenly felt a year before that I had to take them on holiday and have a professional photo shoot. It was purely a knowing from them. You know, it varies, Claire. You know, sometimes it's long, sometimes it's short. Sometimes we can see, like the wave, we can see and feel energy coming far away, but we don't know the details. We feel like change is coming. So you just have to keep being in the moment and not let it like scare you. But know that you will be shown exactly when you need to be shown. So I like that you pointed out that time period. Danielle says, I had a dream a few months before my dog, Sophia, even started declining. And in my dream, she went down, slipping down a slide and out of my sight. I woke in tears, definitely a sign. Yes, that was definitely a premonition type dream. And I like that it was a slide because my animals have shown me that as well. Like they're almost like we were going, and the slide is them easing out. Leslie says, let the intuition hit and believe, the first hit is always the right hit. So then your mind steps in after that, and not second guess it. So go with your first hit. And if it comes and you don't know why, just ask, please show me what I need to see. If there's any other detail. So again, the key, and Renee, I don't know how I have a slide for this. The key is to be fully present in each moment. Be aware on a deeper level than what you see with your eyes, which all your comments tell me that you know what that means. Seeing at a deeper level than what your eyes see on the surface. Melissa says, I was at work and got a terrible knowing our cat Moon, such a cute name, wasn't well. I got home and immediately asked my husband where Moon was. He didn't know. I found Moon under our bed and he was not good at all. Had to pull him out, called the vet immediately, and agreed to the extra cost to bring him in after hours. He was in the process of passing from severe kidney failure that we had no idea that he had. We helped him pass comfortably that evening. I was so angry at first. You know what I would say? You absolutely were shown. You came at the exact right time. You couldn't have come a minute before or a minute after. You were guided there. So when we say we should have known, or I'm so angry I didn't see, just remember this. We see what we're meant to see. Otherwise, it's not time. And all of us want to give 100% to our animals. And so we feel like we've let them down. No, you showed up at just the right time so you could help Moon along the journey. So I think I've got a slide here, Renee. If having willingness to see allows you to gain valuable information about your own needs too, right? And process with animals or humans. Understand what you or your pet need in any challenging situation. It's really good to do that. Get in tune with your emotional heart's messages. So I want to do just a couple of fun, reflective type questions. You may want to close your eyes for this. And I'll put up a slide. Renee, if you will put up present moment awareness. So let's all take a deep breath. Let's just center ourselves. And let out the sound of ah. You feel yourself in your room when you're doing that? You're here now. So spend a few moments quietly observing your pet if they're in the room with you. If they're not, you can bring them to your inner vision without any distractions. Notice the breathing, the movements, and the overall demeanor. And just notice, how does your pet seem today compared to a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? What differences do you notice? These are things you can do really anytime. It doesn't have to be you're wondering if they're the in-between stage. This is a really good intuitive practice of tuning in and letting that inform you. You're not in your head. You're letting a much deeper, broader, wiser energy come in to inform you. So Renee, if you'd put up the next one. So we've got ourselves in the room. Our hearts are open. Sit quietly near your pet and place your hand gently on them, feeling their heartbeat and warmth. And ask silently, how are you feeling today? What do you want me to know? This is another really good way to practice your communication skills. You've got them. We often don't slow down. We're often in our to-do list in our heads too much. Our animals, by touching them and feeling their heartbeat, it's huge. It immediately puts you're actually merging with them. Believe it or not, you're actually merging with their energy when you do this. That's why you're able to pick up things, sense things. Did any thoughts, emotions, or images come to mind when you do that or when you did that? Again, you can do this anytime. You want to ground yourself? Do this. You feel like you're frantic from the day? Go find your pet and do this. It will ground you in a minute, and you'll be right in your heart, and they'll be right there with you. So Renee, if you'd put up the next one. These are all tools to help you. Feel your pet's essence. It's a spiritual connection, and their light in your heart. And ask silently, what do you need in this moment? And how you feel your pet's essence is to put your hand on their body, match your breathing to theirs, feel their heartbeat, sense your heartbeat, and just move in that space with them. It's a flow. And then ask silently, what do you need in this moment? Now feel and see your own essence, who you really are, and light in your heart. Ask silently, what do I need in this moment? We always seem to forget ourselves, right? When we're caring and taking care of things. But this will profoundly change your connection with not only your animal, but yourself as well. And then Renee, if you put up the next one. So dreams and signs. Recall any recent dreams, which some of us have today on the show, or unusual occurrences related to your pet. What signs or messages are being shared with you? Sometimes the dreams are very direct, like the slide, an animal going down a slide, and we can interpret it. And sometimes we may need to, I always say, write your dreams down, write them down, write what you pick up, keep track of it, because the more you pay attention to it, the more you're going to understand it and yourself. And then the next one, Renee, if you'd put up, emotional presence. Don't we all need that? Recall a recent interaction with your pet. Were there moments of deep connection or perhaps distancing? And then notice, are these patterns new? And what might your pet be communicating through their emotions? See, all of these questions, prompts, suggestions I make are all intended to have you move into the neighborhood of your heart and your intuition, which is where all the information is. And you naturally have a connection through your heart with your animal. So what better way to fine tune and practice and tune in. And in the process, you get to understand and know yourself a little better. I'd be curious for any of you, which one of those did you resonate with most? The present moment awareness, where we're quietly observing our pet. The intuitive connection, where we put our hand gently on their bodies and ask, what do you want me to know? Was it the spiritual connection that you resonate with? I kind of like the feeling, the pet's essence, because if we practice feeling their essence now, then we're not going to have any problem when they pass, because that's who they really are. We already know that. We could recognize them in a room. If they came in and we didn't see them, we'd recognize their essence. But I also love you asking you, what do you need? What do I need in this moment? And then the dreams and signs. Invite your dreams in. Tell Spirit and your animal, I'd love to have some dreams. Please, that would be great. That'd be like a wow. And then the emotional presence, where you probably do that just naturally all the time. But it's a energetic potential. All of these will open up the space for you to get the deeper intuitive guidance that you're so longing for. Intuitive connection, I'm seeing, present moment awareness, the touching them and asking. I like that too, Leslie. Intuitive connection. Susie said, I just love watching Marshmallow no matter what he is doing. You know, that's a meditation in itself, that you're already doing that, because he's like your little Zen guy that helps. He's showing me how he helps you vibrate at a higher frequency. That's good for you. And Jen says heart to heart connection. You know, I'm hoping that if your animal is in any kind of in-between space, that, you know, you use these things to tune in and to connect and just to feel them, just to feel better. Melissa says, been doing this since my Josie passed. It's done so much for me in the grieving process. Oh, Melissa, I love that for you. You are, you know, and I talked to Melissa recently, and the after space is as rich a space as the in-between space where we're approaching death. The afterlife space, again, very, very, because the veil is very thin. Put my head against him, tell him I love him. He purrs. Purrs are such high energy on the calibration scale. They are, yeah, we need more purrs, don't we, in life? Oh my gosh, I love that. Nancy said, I intuitively been putting my hand on and asking. I just didn't really know what it was. But now you do. And it's natural. We think we have to go some far off school and learn things. No, we have the software. It's our hearts, and it's our natural caring. And that brings in spirit. Claire says, I wish everyone experienced the in-between space could hear this. Yes, I agree. Because, you know, again, as I said at the beginning of the show, in-between space is a lot of places, and with us in our own lives. As we're approaching any transition, there's, you know, the pregnancy period, you know, of a new birth, in between space of an arrival. So hopefully this gets you thinking in your own life about, am I in an in-between moment? Wonder what I can learn from this, or what does this have to share with me, to tell me? And Lori says, purring, very high frequency. Yes. And healing, it can heal a broken bone. Absolutely. Yes. Very, very significant healing frequency. So I'm loving that all of you are, because I feel like you do a lot of this anyway, but now that we've named it, as Sonia Choquette would say, when you name it, you claim it. So now you don't have to wonder whether you're connecting. All these different ways you can and do. And it's going to bring you a deeper emotional resonance with yourself, with your animal, with life in general, with others. So Renee, I'd like to get to a few questions that you've sent in. Oh my gosh, the questions and photos of your precious babies. I so appreciate them. Lisa said, I've attached a picture of my old man Twist. He is 13 and a half years old. He says he doesn't think he's that old. I love this picture of him. I love it too. I don't know why, but lately when he looks at me, I feel like our time together is coming to an end, and I have an overwhelming feeling that I need to spend all of my time with him. Other than some back end issues, he is healthy, so I don't know where this is coming from. Does he know something I don't? Love this dog with my entire soul, and I want him to know that. I don't know that he's necessarily telling you he's ready to hit the road. Doesn't he gave me that verbiage just then? But he is wanting. There's something about bringing you to the present moment, and like you said, he doesn't feel 13. Like we've got to be careful when we're talking about the animals, and we say, "Oh, they're so old," and they're like, "No, I'm not." And then they worry, like, "Am I old?" So, you know, he would say, "I'm 13 and a half years young." He says he still has a lot of life left to give. So I think probably it's easy to interpret, when we get this, what is that feeling? Just try to be with it and ask to be shown something for clarity's sake. If you need to see, you'll see. But I get the sense he's just wanting to spend time with you. So I would definitely take advantage of, if the overwhelming feeling prompts you to do that, that's all good. You're going to have wonderful, wonderful memories. So I hope that helps. And this is our Max, Jen says. He's approaching his 13th birthday in a few days. We're not sure he'll see it. He's like a pup. His will to live is still so strong, but his body is giving up. It's a genetic condition in his breed, along with being deaf. We help him get up most times, and he can't stand for too long. What is he thinking? I look at him and feel his sadness about his condition. Jen, I don't get the sense he's sad about it. Animals are very accepting of the cycle and the changes in their bodies, and they actually just adapt really much more easily than we do as people. He says that he is slowing down, but he's saying he's taking a lot in. Like he's doing what my Sammy did. He's enjoying the small details, he says. And I think that can help you as well. That even if his body is a little struggling, when we don't make a big deal of it, and I know you don't, like, "Oh, this is terrible." No, you just help him. That's what you do. You show up, and you have. And he's feeling, and pointing to you actually, that you're sad about his condition. He says, "Don't worry, I'm not sad." And that will to live, I'd pay attention to that. He says he's going to let you know. And I would trust that, because he's helping all of us on this show understand how we communicate with our animals. So thank you for Max bringing you to the show and bringing you here and letting us share with him what he's thinking. And Renee, if I have time for another one, I'd love to. My husband Phil wants to know if he disappointed our dog Lily, who was put to sleep 8/7/23. She was 17. She's telling me that absolutely not, that this was a joint decision, she says. And she said I was very spunky. And she said my body may have been giving out, but my spirit certainly didn't. So absolutely not. She is not. Like, and that's what families do. But you've released her from a little body that was not going to last. And so I feel her energy very high, and very much appreciative of reminding you how like a spunky little girl she is. So I would definitely pull up some memories of those fun times with her and let her come in, let her merge with you and activate that. And you're going to feel her in a way you haven't in a while, in a way you've been longing for. And she's telling everybody here to don't count us out just because you say we're older. They were like, that's what you think about yourself. So that is so funny. She got a little spunky attitude and joyous little sprite. Thank you so much. And you know what? We are almost out of time. I can't believe the hours passed. And Constance, oh, this is a wonderful session, Tami. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and the animals' wisdom. And yes, I appreciate all of you. And I cry, Charmaine says, I cry every time because I'm still grieving Blue, but I'm so aware of so much. The missing them is how much we love them. And the journey of grief honors who they were with us. So thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing your wisdom. Thank you for bringing your babies. And I'd love to see you next show. We're probably going to head toward the afterlife review. Very interesting topic indeed. Let's always keep the conversation going. Hope you have a great week. See you next time.
You've been enjoying Tami's Soul Speak featuring animal intuitive and medium Tami Hendricks.